Have you ever wished that Pokemon Masters was a real Pokemon game? Like one where you have the ability to interact with almost every canon character without foregoing the adventure aspect, or a normally functioning battle system? Well, today's your lucky day, because Pokemon Consonantia is exactly that. But if you don't know what Pokemon Masters is, then that's actually completely fine. I myself have played about an hour of it back when it first released, and had no issue understanding this one. Consonantia plays out like almost any other Pokemon fan game. You begin the story by arriving in the region, where not long after, you'll be offered a starter of your choice. Soon after, however, is where the fan game really starts to adapt the themes of the mobile title. Throughout your journey, you'll encounter various characters from both the mainline games and even the anime series. Some of them will offer to battle you, a few may give you a simple quest, and others will even join you on your adventure, allowing you to use their partner in battle. Don't worry, this isn't the only means of obtaining team members. You can still encounter Pokemon in the tall grass, or obtain them through the in-game gacha system, which, yes, being a free-to-play fan game, it obviously isn't going to ask you for any real currency. Though, all these systems combined give you a lot of Pokemon, which is very far from an over-exaggeration, considering I had filled a PC box and a half before even challenging the first gym. And I'm gonna say, I think having that many Pokemon is going to be very helpful, if you choose to play on the game's radical mode. I normally don't choose the hardest difficulty, yet with my experience playing a lot of fan games that like to put a huge amount of effort into visual appeal, it felt necessary to put this one to the test. A test it certainly passed, because yeah, these battles definitely aren't easy. Not only do most important trainers have a wide variety of coverage options, the battle AI is very good at decision making. Luckily, however, there is a crazy amount of convenience provided to you. EV and IV raising items can be purchased from every Pokemon Center, and the EXPL is given at the start. Keep in mind though, all the difficulty I just mentioned only pertains to the radical mode. You can still choose to play the game with a much more casual challenge level. Now, if you're curious about the game's story, I won't lie, it was kind of boring. Which I can't tell if that's a result of the writer's skills, dialogue potentially being borrowed from the mobile game, or just an oversaturation of other fan projects being filled to the brim with canon cast members. Your goal is to travel across the region of Paseo, collect gym badges, and eventually prove yourself as the world's strongest Pokemon trainer. Paseo itself is pretty well decorated, though it does very much operate in a straight line. I honestly did go into this game expecting a story I wouldn't enjoy, but I was certainly impressed by the quality of the gameplay. The Pokemon battles are very fun, and I don't think any other aspects of the game drag that down in any way. With all the new ROM hacks that have come out in the last few years, I still feel like it's been quite a while since I found one with a new Pokemon that truly resonates with me. Don't get it twisted, I thought Pisces was really good, it just felt a bit more mentally demanding than I personally desired. And while the demo for Spades and Clubs showed a crazy amount of potential within its overworld and Fakemon design, it sort of lacked some modern game design philosophies that I feel has really carried my enjoyment of the franchise over the last few years. So I've gotta say that I'm really excited to talk about Pokemon Peach and Lime, that despite only being a 3-gym beta, has become my current favorite hack of 2026. But that's a pretty high praise, so other than the fact that there isn't much to compare it to at the moment, what exactly does this hack do to earn such a status? Well, to start, the EXPL is provided to you at the beginning of your adventure, an item I strongly believe belongs in every game with new Pokemon, since you are likely to find yourself experimenting with unknown team members on a consistent basis. This particular version of the item, however, is not extremely overpowered, nor is it designed to perfectly balance EXP across your entire party. You'll still be required to use each of your Pokemon to a somewhat equal extent, it'll just be way less likely for them to fall behind. Though I will admit Peach and Lime's battles are not very difficult. The boss battles, at least as far as this version goes, can be compared to that of Pokemon Platinum or Emerald. However, I think that this level of challenge works really well if you're planning to play the game blindly or even with Nuzlocke rules. I also can't refer to the story as super deep or thought-provoking, though it does offer a level of authenticity that you would find in an older Pokemon title. With all of that said, I believe Peach and Lime's systems flow together in a way that allow you to put all of your focus onto the new Pokemon, which I really like. because the new Pokemon are really good. Besides complimenting how nice looking they are, the Fakemon in this game are balanced to where you can confidently pick them up without ever having to worry about what each one does. And this is accomplished by not only providing every new Pokemon with a useful set of level up attacks, but also by locking most of their evolutions behind nothing more than level up. Despite having documentation of all these Fakemon, Peach and Lime succeeds extremely well in providing an unknown experience where I felt barely punished choosing to catch whatever I wanted. Oh, and not to mention, the game as a whole just looks really good. Up next is Dark Horizon, a newly completed game by the creator of Pokemon Eon Guardians. Considering how fond I am of their first project, I went into this one expecting your standard Pokemon gameplay and narrative experience, with a satisfying level of detail given to the visuals. What I got instead was something that looked, played, and read much differently from not only what I predicted I would be going into, but also compared to many fan games I've played as of recent. Dark Horizon takes place in the region of Aurelia, a place where all attention is put onto those who take part in the Pokemon Colosseums, beginning the story as a somewhat experienced Pokemon trainer who seems to be trying their best to get by, competing against others in the local arena. What I find very interesting about the start of this game is that you're clearly a young adult with your own home and responsibilities, rather than a child ready to begin a journey. Though not long after the opening segment do you find yourself tracking down a competitor who seems to possess Shadow Pokemon. If it wasn't already obvious from what's been displayed on screen, Dark Horizon is heavily tied to the games Pokemon Colosseum and Gale of Darkness. More specifically taking place in between those two titles, where Team Cypher has reappeared, seeking to continue the development of Shadow Pokemon. Your goal will be to travel across the region's various islands, of course putting a stop to them, while maintaining your status of strength within the various Colosseums. I really need to compliment that both the story and region were really entertaining to progress through. The writing wasn't extremely deep, though the efforts to tell something different from the standard 8-gym formula are definitely appreciated. The gameplay is also quite different from at least what you'd expect in most fan games. Dark Horizon uses double battles as its primary format, even going as far as offering 2 Pokemon instead of 1 for starter choices. Where things get very thrown into left field is how you'll go about catching future team members. In the region of Aurelia, there's no tall grass, cave encounters, or even fishing. Instead, you'll need to take advantage of a tool called the Snag Machine, robbing your antagonists of their poor Shadow Pokemon. Now, if you aren't familiar with how Shadow Pokemon work, basically, you'll need to continuously battle with them until their hearts are purified. Only then can they be reverted, regaining their normal attacks. Well, this is a somewhat grindy process. The bright side is that Shadow moves are pretty powerful, hitting every type except itself for super effective damage. The only piece of criticism I have is that I think the hard mode providing less EXP, despite having a level cap, is a bit contradicting. But other than that, the game is really fun, playing a lot differently from your average fan project, and even has a sizable post-game. Moving into the honorable mentions, we first have a brand new update to Pokemon Lazarus. This hack already seemed like a very completed experience, to the point where I really didn't expect any additional content to be added. So, like I anticipated, this update simply provides features the player base has requested since its release. This includes the ability to disable level caps, a new cheat code that loads your bag with every battle item, and a handful of balance changes to existing Pokemon. It's also of course worth mentioning that the trailer for this update ended with an announcement for Alola Seaglass. But if you for some reason haven't heard of Pokemon Lazarus, then I highly suggest you check out my full showcase linked below, as it's easily one of the best Pokemon ROM hacks currently available. The second honorable mention is Disintegration, by the same creator of Pokemon Photon, which is a game I didn't have too much interest in after a few hours of playing. This one, however, had me hooked immediately. Visually, Disintegration is pretty reminiscent of Reborn and Desolation, however, it manages to keep itself from feeling identical to those games thanks to many different choices in music, sound effects, and a unique style of character mugshots. Though gameplay-wise, you'll have a similar field effect system, which basically provides special buffs or debuffs to various moves or types depending on the environment. Currently, the game only has a few hours of gameplay, but what I was able to get my hands on left a really solid impression. And last, but certainly not least, is Pokemon Echo. I've had my eyes on this game for almost a year now, and while the developer did release a short demo last fall, I wasn't super interested in diving into something that I wouldn't be able to pick back up until its eventually completed release. Although thanks to the positive reception from the community, the creator decided to instead release the game in a more episodic format, which I personally prefer from a developer's standpoint, as it allows them to build a larger player base over time, giving the creators much more motivation to continue working on it. But enough about my philosophies on releasing your fan project. Pokemon Echo takes place in the region of Nison, and for a place that's supposedly home to 8 gym leaders, it seemingly lacks the number of towns or settlements that match that. Well, that's because this region is constructed much differently, hosting a gigantic focus on exploration. Though assuming you're a little burnt out of open world projects like myself, I will stress that Echo is still paced in a specific order. It's just that instead of going explore route, arrive at city, complete story event, fight gym leader, rinse and repeat, you're instead given a more circular area to explore, bordered off by natural obstacles like cut trees or sleeping Snorlax. And then after defeating the gym leader, the circle of exploration expands, thanks to gaining access to said HM, which you don't need to teach to your Pokemon, by the way. This style of progression might not sound that different, but you're going to quickly notice just how little the game forces its own story onto you. There are plenty of opportunities to explore before you need to challenge the next gym leader or receive an assignment from the professor. And back to what I mentioned earlier, this system works incredibly well since all of your gym battles will be hosted in the city at the center of the map. Though as polished as the overworld visuals seem to be, the gameplay does not at all fall behind. Like an earlier project in this video, Echo uses double battles as its primary format, once again offering 2 Pokemon for your starter choice instead of 1. While I know the doubles format can often be harder to navigate than singles, the combat in this game specifically feels balanced in favor of providing both sides a number of ways to overpower the other. For example, I kind of struggled with the first gym leader due to how well their team was crafted for the format compared to my collection of recently captured Pokemon. Though as I unlocked more areas and spent extended time exploring them, I was able to put together a roster that barely struggled against future challenges. Pokemon Echo is an extremely polished game with a lot more things to do than I expected a 4-gym demo to have. Whether it be a city on your main path, a hidden temple, or even an underwater tunnel, the game never failed to surprise me with both the quality and quantity of its available content. And that's just about going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed, and be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon fan games and ROM hacks. Thank you to my channel members for their continuous support, and have a nice rest of your day.